Welcome back to the African History Network show. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Once again, if you have a question or comment, give us a call, 914-338-1375, 1-4-338-1375. Press the number 1 key to put you in queue so it can bring you on the air. Moving into our third hour. And we have Abayomi Azikiwe, who's the editor of the Pan-African Newswire, on the line to talk about some recent developments with the Supreme Court. Hotep Abayomi, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right, brother. I'm all right. Well, you know, man, it's been a little while since we've had you on, and all hell, it seems like, is broken loose. Tuesday with the Supreme Court and the decision, upholding a decision by Michigan voters. And so we want to talk about that. We also talk about the decision from the Supreme Court dealing with individuals being able to donate an unlimited amount to political campaigns, as well as the Supreme Court decision knocking down Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. So a lot going on, man, and coming from the Supreme Court under the African-American president as well. So let's start out with what just happened Tuesday. Give us an overview of what happened and the significance of this.
This case stemmed from a vote that took place in the state of Michigan several years ago,
Yes.
which was put on the ballot through deception. It was called the Michigan Civil Rights Initiative.
I remember that, yes.
The civil rights. They claim the right wing now they're using the terminology of civil rights and equal opportunity and non-discrimination to, in fact, promote racism, exclusivism, and dominance by the white ruling class. So it was put on the ballot through deception. It was a well-funded campaign. They got signatures from people, even within the African-American community, because unfortunately, a lot of our people don't read petitions before they sign them. So my experience, direct experience with that was that I was at a supermarket out on 7 Mile and Evergreen, I believe it was, when they were collecting signatures for their campaign. And somebody, 2 African Americans were there collecting signatures. This one woman walked up to me and said, I'd never seen her before in my life. She said, do you want to sign a petition to support affirmative action? And I said, what is, let me see the petition, because I hadn't heard of any petition to put something on the ballot in support of affirmative action. And when I looked at it and I read the top of it, and it said that they wanted to change the Michigan Constitution to guarantee non-discrimination. I said, well, if you want to support affirmative action, why do you have to change the Michigan Constitution? I said, this petition is against affirmative action. So she just turned around and walked away. But there were other African Americans out there lined up to sign those petitions. They were paying people several dollars per petition signature. So it goes to the whole question of political education and being sophisticated. So they use this type of deception to collect the signatures, and then there were numerous efforts directed against the state electoral board to prevent the referendum from being put on the ballot. And eventually it was put on after a long struggle. And what was interesting was that the way in which the no vote was campaigned for, voting no against the Michigan Civil Rights Initiative, which was an anti-affirmative action referendum, instead of emphasizing racism or the plight of African Americans or Latinos, or they talked about how affirmative action helps little girls, mainly little white girls, so rather than deal with the question of race. So anyway,
now who talked about this? Who talked about how affirmative action benefits?
Well, this was the campaign for a no vote. the people who were funding the campaign did not want to emphasize that this was a racist effort to set, African Americans and other people of color back decades, by denying them access to higher education and any other. This could apply to any public position. So this is how it was framed, and the referendum won. So there were other efforts by attorneys in the city to have it overturned, based on the fact that placing the referendum on the ballot was done through deception. So it went through various stages of appeal. It wound up at the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday, in a 6-2 vote. They upheld that the vote of the majority of people in Michigan could not be overturned. So, it's just a clear indication of where the U.S. Supreme Court is, the majority of the U.S. Supreme Court, because, as you mentioned earlier, they had just struck down the enforcement provisions of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. That was done last year, based upon a case out of Shelby County, Alabama, where they were saying essentially is that, the U.S. doesn't need those type of guarantees against discrimination anymore, because now, you have African Americans in Congress, they serve in local government, state government, and even in the White House. So why would you need guarantees for voting rights? So these are two major decisions that were done. And also you mentioned a third decision saying that there should be no limits on how much an individual can contribute to a political campaign. We all know that's going to benefit the wealthy, because they're already buying candidates anyway. Look at most of the politicians in Michigan are owned by the corporations and the banks. Even the Detroit City Council, most of them don't work for the people in Detroit. They work for Mike Ilitch and Dan Gilbert and Penske and all those folks. That's who they really work for. And the evidence of it, all you have to do is watch, for those in the city of Detroit, watch Channel 10, which is the government station, where the city council meetings, where the city council meetings come on every night, and you can hear what they're talking about. And in general, what they're talking about has nothing to do with the interests of the people of the city of Detroit. Like, for example, Detroit now is in a major bankruptcy proceeding that's restructuring the entire framework of the city of Detroit. But they're not discussing that at the city council. You got 23,000 retirees whose pensions are on the chopping block. They're not discussing that at the Detroit City Council. You have a threat to privatize and sell off the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, a multi-billion-dollar resource that belongs to the people of the city of Detroit, that supplies fresh water to people not only in Detroit but throughout the entire southeastern Michigan region and other regions of the state. They're not discussing that. They're not discussing the wholesale theft of voting rights of African Americans in the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. So it just goes to show that it's already going on, and these decisions are just done to reinforce what already exists, because affirmative action, for all intents and purposes, has already been eliminated. There's been so many restrictions placed on it. Just talk to the black students at the University of Michigan, and they say each year fewer and fewer of them are on campus. A lot of times they're the only student in the classroom. So this is the atmosphere that exists right now in the United States.
Absolutely. For those just tuning in, you're listening to the African History Network show. We're speaking with Abayomi Azikiwe, who's the editor of the Pan-African Newswire. We're talking about some recent decisions by the Supreme Court that are going to have a negative, deleterious effect on African Americans. If you have a question or comment, give us a call, 914-338-1375. Area code 914-338-1375. You'll be prompted to press the number 1 key so we can bring you on the air. and turn down the speakers, turn on your computer in the background, listen to the phone, and try to write down your questions so we can try to get through them quickly. Now, you talked about white women and affirmative action. Now, this article comes from theroot.com, theroot.com, and we share numerous articles from theroot.com on a regular basis. The name of this article is The Real Affirmative Action Babies. The Real Affirmative Action Babies. This came out August 3rd, 2009. And it talks about how it says why white women are the real winners in affirmative action, because the number one beneficiary of affirmative action have been white women. Now, why do you think that now just to back up for a minute, the case regarding Michigan's ban on affirmative action, that was in regards to college admissions, being able to take race into account when it came to college admissions. Okay, and the lawsuit happened back in, I think, about 2002 when Jennifer Grant sued University of Michigan, if I remember correctly. She sued University of Michigan because she claimed that she did not get accepted to U of M because her slot went to an African American who I think this person's GPA or something wasn't as good as hers or something like that. All right, and she sued U of M and won in court. Okay, so now the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action have been white women, and she was one of the main ones helping to push for this ban back in 2006 affirmative action was written into law, and the main affirmative action law that we know about is from Executive Order 11246, September 1965, under President Lyndon Johnson. It was written into law to help to be corrective action for 246 years of slavery and decades of Jim Crow segregation. It was never intended to be for white women, Hispanics, Arabs, Chaldeans, Mexicans, midgets, humpbacks, homosexuals, anything like this. It was specifically for African Americans. Now, how is it that it switched and the biggest beneficiary of affirmative action have been white women?
Well, I mean, it's a series of developments. In 1965, there was a huge civil rights movement, and it was the beginning of the urban rebellions during that time period. So the federal government felt compelled to do something to try to lessen the pressure on the government and the corporations by saying that we're going to open up these institutions and businesses to African Americans. Yeah, that's basically what they were trying to do, to diffuse the popular anger and discontent with the system. Also, they had to compete with the Soviet Union and China and other countries who were critical of the United States for their racism. So, that is what happened. But what happened was that there were pushbacks against affirmative action, against civil rights, against black empowerment. And then there was a series of cases in the 70s, the most popular being the Bakke case, where this white engineer at the University of California at Davis said that he didn't get a seat in the medical school because there were some African Americans who were admitted who had lower GPAs than he did. So obviously, if the blacks got admitted, then one of the blacks must have had his seat. This is how the white racists and supremacists think. Like, how could that black person have my seat? Because the Constitution was not written for us. And so, it's the way that American politics have functioned has been a white man's situation. But in terms of white women, I think white people in general have benefited more from affirmative action because it prompted posting of jobs. It also provided, when the universities opened up, they also opened up to a lot of whites, too, who could never afford to go to university as well. And with America being a racist society, they will hire whites, because they control the economy. much faster than they will in hiring African Americans. So, this is how they would benefit. Now, I'm all for full equality for women and women having access to whatever exists in society. But at the same time, we have to take racism into consideration, and the position of African American women vis-a-vis white women is still not on an equal basis. So, I mean, if you look at the Great Recession that started in 2007, 2008, a lot of African American women were negatively impacted by that through loss of jobs, health care. A lot of them were forced into poverty. More children have been forced into poverty because the women in the black community are largely responsible for raising children. Now, these issues are, of course, not being addressed at all, by the government, even under Barack Obama. So, I think that all of these struggles, if we're not organized and we're not conscious, we're not politically educated, other people will benefit much more than we will. And, just like those people who signed that petition to put this thing on the ballot without reading the petition, it makes no sense. So you have to be very careful as an oppressed person in a racist society. You can't be careless. You have to pay close attention to everything. And that's what happens, and it's going to continue to happen until we, become more aware.
Absolutely. Now, what do you make? What do you make of the fact that verdicts coming from the Supreme Court have been beneficial to other groups, the immigration law, recently, things like this, but it's been detrimental. We can look at 3 Supreme Court verdicts that are going to be detrimental for African Americans, and we can transition over to the one regarding individuals can donate an unlimited amount of money to political campaigns. I'm looking at, first of all, our so-called leaders have no agenda, have no plan, have no agenda. The black agenda that they talked about early last year, you don't hear anything about it from Reverend Al Sharpton, okay, or any of these other so-called leaders. You don't hear anything about the black agenda. They are...
Well, Sharpton is an informant for the federal government.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he has been for, well over 2 decades. I mean, this story is not new. The surface is just a reincarnation of an old story. And I think that's directly why he has national exposure on, cable networks and nationally syndicated radio stations that broadcast directly into the black community every day. I don't think it's an accident.
Absolutely.
I really don't.
I don't think so either, man. So, and it's no accident, like I said, that he has no economic empowerment program and no plan for African Americans. I talk about how what he does is he keeps you engaged in the fight, keeps you marching and protesting and fighting against stand your groundness and voter suppression. That he keeps you fighting without providing a plan to win the fight.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just keeps you engaged in the fight, which keeps you dependent upon him, okay, and keeps you further dependent upon the European power structure. Because because we are talking about employing ourselves, becoming the number 1 employer of African Americans, circulating our dollars, supporting African American-owned businesses, going from spending 2% of our disposable income to 10%, creating 1 to 2 million jobs over the next 2 years so we can employ our own people, things like this. We aren't talking about that. I listened to his show today and yesterday. He wasn't on yesterday. He was on today. Andrew Michael Eggleston sat in for him for almost about the first hour. But he talked about how what we have to do is to organize, register people to vote, and to vote and march. This was the solution to he said, and see, another problem is that many of your civil rights leaders today are aligned with the Democratic Party, whereas in the past, say, like if you look at Dr. King wasn't a advocate for either party per se. Okay?
No, he wasn't.
You see what I mean? It was about justice. It wasn't about being aligned with the party. It wasn't about cozying up to the president. You see. So,
and what do we get out of it?
Nothing.
What do we get out of it? Now we're gonna vote. I'm all for voting. I'm all for voting.
Yeah.
I think the attacks on the Voting Rights Act are wrong, but at the same time, as I said, we got to emphasize political education. I mean, what are we voting for? I mean, okay, right now there's an election coming up, 2 elections, and I watch television. I see the commercials. These Democratic Party politicians and Republicans, they're not talking about any issue that impacts not only black people, but even white people. They're not talking about the issues that impact them. They are suffering too as a result of the not as bad as we are, but all I'm saying is that, okay, for example, the roads in Michigan. Look how horrible the roads are in Michigan. That's not even mentioned in the campaign literature. Come on. The governor claims he has $1 billion in surplus, which he took from
Governor Snyder.
He took it from revenue sharing. He took it from the women who have children and who are unemployed, low income. He took it from the cities, but yet they won't even use the money even to repair the roads. They don't even want to give money to help the city of Detroit. So what are we voting for? To tell you the truth, I mean, just think about it.
Dr. Claude Anderson talks about how we need to come out of all of the political parties, because he says that the Democratic Party takes you for granted. The Republican Party knows that for the most part that you're Democratic, so that they aren't going to pursue you. He said we need to come out of all of it. He's been saying this for years. He just started saying this. He's been saying this for years. We need to come out of all the parties so that people have to fight for our vote. If you belong to the Democratic Party, the Democrats know they don't have to do anything for you because you're going to vote Democrat.
Exactly, because they feel, a lot of black folks feel they don't have any other choice. It's the lesser of 2 evils. They figure, well, the Republicans are, so bad. Rick Snyder has, done all these bad things. But if we look at Jennifer Granholm's administration, she did some real bad things too to Detroit.
And who was the Democratic governor of Michigan before we got Rick Snyder, the Republican governor of Michigan. Yeah, exactly.
Like the group I work with, the Moratorium Now Coalition. We were working on foreclosures and evictions and utility shut-off. We tried to get Granholm as early, even before the Moratorium Now Coalition was formed. We tried to get Granholm to impose a moratorium on foreclosures when the whole foreclosure problem started in 2007. And because, just think, it was hundreds of thousands of people who lost their homes in Michigan. And that, of course, caused tremendous drain in the tax revenue, which impacts the operation of cities, schools, and other public services, and the economy in general. Because when people lose their homes, then in all likelihood they're going to move. And a lot of people have moved out of Detroit. A lot of people have moved out of Michigan. Right. So we tried to get her to impose, because it's a legal basis for doing that, and she refused. So just look how many people's homes could have been saved from these criminal banks. She was the one that imposed an emergency manager on the Detroit Public Schools. Yes. Robert Bobb. That was her that appointed. It wasn't Rick Snyder that appointed Robert Bobb to the Detroit Public Schools. So, people need to have a memory, that's longer than what happened yesterday or the day before yesterday. And even Obama. I mean, Obama is supporting, his administration is supporting the bankruptcy of Detroit. They wrote a brief that's on file in the federal court saying that what the EM is doing is constitutional. So, if we don't make demands, even on these Democratic politicians that African Americans go out and vote for, then what is the point? If you got somebody in office that you put in office, you have a right to demand that they address your issues. you know,
Right,
and
right. Now,
it's just not happening. Sharpton is not going to do it because Sharpton, you know, gets invited to the White House. You know,
exactly.
Obama spoke at the National Action Network convention in New York.
Yep, just last week.
You know?
Yep, just last week.
Yeah, right.
Now
right.
let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question because you brought up an excellent point. You said we have to make demands. How do we make the demands? Because our
you can threaten to withhold your vote.
Say again?
You can threaten to withhold your vote.
Now, what do you mean by that? You're saying don't vote or what?
Well, we're not going to vote for you. We're going to say we're not going to vote for you. I don't care what if you're not going to address our issues. You know, that's what we tell Mark Schauer and all these other people. You know, don't let them come in our neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Mark Schauer is the Democratic candidate for governor of Michigan, because this is a national show, so everybody doesn't know who Mark Schauer or Rick Snyder or Jennifer Granholm are. Okay, so now the biggest one of the biggest questions, one of the biggest hurdles have been, and I'm all for coming out of all the political parties, and also I understand, and I talked about this before, and I've talked about this with Robert X, who I've had on, and things like this. Voting is not the answer, but voting is a small part of the answer. It's a small part. Voting has its purpose. It's a small part of the answer. But how once the candidate gets in office, how do you hold them accountable? Because now they have your vote and they're in office. So how do you hold them accountable and make sure that they live promises that they made to you when you withheld your vote and negotiated with them X, Y, and Z for your vote?
Yeah, well, it's other forms of pressure that can be exerted. You can sit in their offices. You can demonstrate against them. You can threaten not to vote for them again. You can recall them. You can target their contributors. You know, it's a lot of things that can be done. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one, targeting the contributors, because as far as recalls go, from my research on recalls, approximately 94, 95% of them fail. Okay.
Yeah, they do, but they're not well organized. Yeah.
Right. Because I remember there was an attempt to recall Governor Rick Snyder, and it just flopped. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It just flopped. So boycotting the selective boycotting of some of the corporations that contribute to some of these candidates is one of the ways that I don't see tried a lot at all.
No.
Yeah, but I think that would be something that would be very effective. Okay.
Yeah, like the white mayor from Livonia that's over Detroit now, Mike Duggan.
Yeah, Mike Duggan, yeah.
Look at who his contributors were, you know. So, you know, those people, you know, can be called out, you know, because as far as I'm concerned, Mike Duggan is just part of the whole emergency management process, the whole takeover of Detroit. He has no history of any progressive politics. He privatized the Detroit Medical Center. He prevented the Michigan Nurses Association from organizing at the Detroit Medical Center. So, you know, he has no history of progressive politics. And, you know, so he represents no solution for the people in the city of Detroit. But, see, we keep winding up with the Dave Bings and the Mike Duggans and all these people, because we really don't hold these people accountable, and we don't make demands on the Democratic Party. So we're going to continue to be in this situation until we have a change of consciousness.
Well, this is why we have to come out of the parties, I think.
Yeah, I think so, too. We need our own party.
And really understand. Yeah, exactly. And really understand history and understand how if these candidates don't fear the people, they're not going to be for the people.
Right.
That they don't fear retaliation from the people. You know, that's just the bottom line. Now, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if we had our own party, okay, that was independent, there are other groups that would ally with us. The Latinos, a lot of them are disaffected from the Democratic Party because of the high deportation. I mean, they lied to them too, and a lot of them vote Democratic now. Then you got, even women, white women, people in the LGBTQIA community. We could, the Asian American community, the Muslim community. There are some whites that would, who are disaffected, would ally with us. I mean, we could form a party that would have we could form a party, and then we could have alliances with other groups that are disaffected. And it could probably constitute a majority inside the United States. So people don't understand that the Democratic Party is really an unholy alliance between a certain wing of the ruling class who are very wealthy people, and people who are part of the working class, the oppressed groups like African Americans and Latinos and so forth. It's not you got people who belong to a party whose leadership does not represent their interests.
Right.
And that's very dangerous. I mean, in terms of the people who really run the Democrats and run the Republicans, there's fundamentally no class difference between those people. You got people who contribute both to the Republican and the Democratic Party.
Correct.
So they
that's
can
what a lot of
control
wealthy people do. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what a lot of wealthy people do.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's crazy. It's crazy. So you got blacks who vote against their own interests. You got whites who vote against their own interests. So it's a lot of confusion out there. Yeah.
Now, with the verdict that came down recently from the Supreme Court, with stating that individuals can make an unlimited amount of contributions to political candidates, and I think the reason why those who voted for this, the reason they gave is because money equates to speech, and you have the right to free speech. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember back to what they stated.
Well, that is not going to benefit free speech. And, like in politics, it's money. Who can buy the ads to get on TV, on radio? That takes a lot of money to buy those ads. And if people don't know about it, then they're not going to, in most cases, because you don't have the grassroots organizations that can go door to door to hit all the churches, the community centers, the schools. We just don't have that kind of organization that's centralized where people can do that. So that's a problem. It's real. Like when Coleman Young ran in 1973, he had a formidable grassroots organization.
Okay.
Because the power structure, the media anyway, was opposed to him. Now, we don't have that now. I mean, it systematically destroyed all of that. So, it's a serious problem in terms of how we even intervene in politics right now. I've been up in Lansing, and I've watched the politicians who say they represent Detroit, and they're not doing anything, not too much to stand up for the people in Detroit. It's a job for them.
Absolutely.
It's prestige associated with it, and that's it. They're not talking about all these things we were talking about earlier, the threatened privatization of the water, all that. They're not even discussing that in Lansing. The blacks. So they should be screaming and hollering. Even if they can't pass anything, they could be standing up, jumping up and down. At least saying, people in Detroit are getting a raw deal, but they're not doing that. They're not doing it at all. So it's a problem, and I think it's just criminal that they're talking about privatizing the water department, because water is a very, very I mean, water is the basis of civilization.
Correct.
I mean, if you don't have water, you don't have anything.
All
the early human civilizations, the Nile civilization, valley. I mean, it grew up around waterways.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, so if you give away the water, you're giving away your whole civilization. Is given away. So
now, why are they talking about privatizing the water in Detroit?
Well, they want to make the money. They want to take it away from the control of the city government and the water board. And a lot of the people in the suburbs won't go along with creating a regional authority because of their racism.
Right.
But the thing is, their water rates are going to go up too. You know, so it just shows how racism breeds ignorance, because the blacks in Detroit are no longer in control. I mean, we had a semblance. We didn't never have full control. We had some semblance of control, but we don't even have that now. Okay, so for them to be saying, well, we're not going to partner with Detroit, it's not, you know, what they're saying. They don't want to partner with Kevin Orr, who's an agent, you know, for Snyder, who works for the corporations and the banks. So what they need to be saying, and what people need to be saying to them, is that really you should be supporting the people in Detroit. Because if the water department is privatized, your water rates are going to go up as well. And it's not just the people in Detroit that are going to suffer. But, you know, like I said, this kind of racism breeds that type of irrational thinking. You know, all you got to do is read the comment section in the Free Press and the news online, and you see all these whites who live in the suburbs who make all these disparaging comments about Detroit. But they're you know, they're losing their homes too. Their businesses, small businesses, are going under, and their schools are having to lay off people, and you know, all this kind of stuff. You know, so they got drugs in their neighborhoods, but you know, they still think that, you know, they're better than black people in Detroit. So it's a problem. It really is.
Very quickly, and then we're going to get out of here. How I don't remember if you stated this. How does the Supreme Court ruling on individuals being able to donate an unlimited amount of money to campaigns, how does this negatively affect the African American vote?
Well, we don't have as much money, and it'll just be worse because they already control the politicians, most of them. I'm not saying all of them. You know, there are still some good ones out there, very few, but they still control them. I mean, like, look at the vote to hand over free land and tax money to Mike Ilitch to build a new hockey arena and entertainment district in Cass Corridor. I mean, it's a perfect example that 6 of those people would vote to give away land to rich people. And there's, I mean, how many jobs is that really going to create for people who live in Detroit? You know, okay, the construction jobs, we don't control the construction industry. So, and they refuse to put in writing any guarantees if they said, well, half of the construction jobs have to go to black people. That's, you know, they said, no, we don't want to do that. You know, how many of the businesses or storefronts are they going to allocate to African Americans in Detroit? There's nothing in writing that says they even have to do that. Okay, and then once the stadium is built, they don't need that many people. All they need is people to, you know, take care of the grounds, you know, clean up the trash, collect the tickets, sell the popcorn, the peanuts. That's pretty much, and those are seasonal jobs, and the management level jobs, very few of those. You know, they make most of their money off ticket sales and advertising. You know, these sports arenas, and most of the work is seasonal work. So how's that really going to be? Look at all the other 2 stadiums, Comerica Park and Ford Field. You know, how has that really helped to revitalize the city of Detroit? It hasn't. The casino is the same thing. Most of the casino tax revenue goes to the banks, you know, to pay off debts. They don't even come back to the general fund of the city.
Oh, okay. That's what you're saying.
So that was a big issue in the that's a big issue in the bankruptcy trial right now. You know, the so-called tax captures, and even money that's supposed to go to the public schools and to the public library. A percentage of that money is taken to channel into the Downtown Development Authority, the Downtown Economic Growth Corporation. I mean, these are white entities controlled by very wealthy white people like Penske and Gilbert And Mike Ellis and these people and people at Chase Bank and Bank of America and all that, they're taking tax dollars that should be going to the public schools for their own profit-making purposes. So even in the private sector, I mean, the private sector is even stealing money from the public sector to fund their programs.
Exactly.
And the media supports it. They say, oh, well, this is a good thing. This new arena is being built. But how is it really going to help African Americans in Detroit, who are the majority?
Right.
You know,
hey, look, we got to get out of here.
Tell people,
tell people how they can read the Pan-African Newswire and how they can get in contact with you if they want you to do a presentation or do an interview or something like that.
Yeah, they can log on to the Pan-African Newswire blog. That's at panafricannews.blogspot.com. That's panafricannews.blogspot.com. I'm also on Facebook at Abayomi Azikiwe. That's Abayomi, last name Azikiwe.
Okay, excellent. We'll have to have you back soon, man, and do our African Diaspora Roundup. Well, but it's always good having you on, brother. We always learn a lot, okay?
Okay, keep up the good work.
Okay, thanks, you too, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Peace. All right. You listen to the African History Network show. That was Abayomi Azikiwe of the Pan-African Newswire.